I used to believe that love was enough. That no matter how twisted life became, love would smooth out the edges. My name is Adil, and for the longest time, I thought I had everything a man could ever want: a steady job, a home I was proud of, and Sanaa, my wife. My anchor. My greatest blessing. Sanaa was the kind of woman who didn't demand much, but gave everything. Thoughtful without asking for recognition. Fierce when it came to protecting the people she loved. We met during our final year of university, both chasing dreams but quietly craving connection. What started as shared laughter over group assignments grew into midnight phone calls, secret walks, and eventually, a quiet wedding witnessed only by a few close friends. We didn't have a grand celebration, just grand hopes. For years, life felt balanced. We both worked, supported each other, and built a home that pulsed with warmth. But life, as it does, began testing us in subtle ways. My job at the construction firm became more demanding. The long hours wore me down, and disappointments, missed promotions, unpaid overtime, began to chip away at my patience. I started drinking. First just to take the edge off, then as a reward, eventually as a crutch. Sanaa noticed, of course. At first, she said nothing, just left lemon water and painkillers by the bed. But silence has weight, and in her silence, I heard judgment, concern, and worst of all, distance. Still, she stayed. She tried to keep things normal. Friday night takeout. Weekend movie marathons. The little things couples do to pretend things aren't falling apart. But the laughter wasn't the same anymore. Conversations grew shorter, and the space between us in bed began to feel like a canyon. I wasn't blind to it, I just didn't know how to fix it. Every time I tried to explain what I was feeling, the words fell flat. I was ashamed of my anger, of my sadness, of how lost I felt in my own skin. And so, I poured myself another drink instead. One evening, I came home late, drunk again. The house was quiet, lights dimmed. I saw Sanaa asleep on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, a book resting on her chest. I stood there for a moment, watching her. My chest tightened with guilt. She looked so peaceful, so undeserving of the mess I had become. That was the night everything began to change. That night, the silence in our home felt heavier than usual. I remember standing there in the dim light, swaying slightly, my breath laced with whiskey and regret. Sanaa looked peaceful on the couch, but I knew it wasn't peace that put her to sleep. It was emotional exhaustion. The kind that grows when love is stretched too thin. I moved closer, gently kneeling beside her. Her eyelashes fluttered slightly at the sound of my movement, but she didn't fully wake. I told myself I was just going to sit beside her, maybe hold her hand, maybe whisper an apology I couldn't say when sober. But something in me was spiraling, confused, craving, careless. In my intoxicated state, boundaries blurred. I didn't think clearly. I wasn't violent. I wasn't forceful. But I was inconsiderate. I was selfish. I touched her in a way that felt affectionate to me at the time, seeking closeness, intimacy, something we hadn't shared in weeks. I thought it might bring us back together. I was wrong. She stirred abruptly, startled and confused. "Adil, what are you doing?" she asked, her voice low, uncertain. In that moment, something inside me snapped into awareness. I pulled back immediately, embarrassed, heart pounding with shame. "I'm sorry," I mumbled, stumbling to my feet. "I didn't mean, I just—" But she didn't answer. She sat up slowly, wrapped the blanket around herself, and stared ahead in silence. The kind of silence that speaks louder than screams. I slept in the guest room that night. The next morning, the air between us was frigid. She made tea, placed it on the table, and left the house without saying a word. I sat there for hours, staring into the cup, trying to piece together what I had done. Trying to justify it, excuse it, soften it. But no matter how I turned the memory around in my mind, it all came down to one truth. I had broken something sacred. I tried texting her that day, apologizing, asking if she was okay. No reply. When she finally returned home, it was late. She went straight to bed. No eye contact. No conversation. No accusations either. And somehow that was worse. Over the following days, she kept to herself. No fights, no confrontations, just a steady, painful withdrawal. As if she had quietly made up her mind to leave, but was waiting for the right moment. Or maybe the strength. I kept telling myself it wasn't that serious. That we'd move past it. That I was just drunk. But deep down, I knew it wasn't just the act, it was what it symbolized. A moment of emotional betrayal. A violation of trust. And once trust is cracked, even a whisper sounds like thunder. The days that followed were quiet, but not in the way peaceful days are. Ours were filled with unsaid things, with awkward footsteps and polite nods. Sana wasn't angry, not visibly at least. But her absence was louder than any fight we could have had. She no longer waited up for me. Dinner became a solo affair, wrapped in foil in the fridge. The bed we once shared now felt like a stranger's space, one side cold, untouched. And when we did speak, it was mechanical. Pass the salt. Your phone rang. I'm stepping out. Each phrase carried the weight of 1,000 unspoken questions. I tried. God knows I tried. I cleaned up, literally and figuratively. I poured the whiskey down the sink. Went 3 weeks sober. Cooked her favorite meal one night. Even bought her lilies from the florist down the street. She thanked me, softly, with a faint smile. But it didn't reach her eyes. That smile was for politeness, not affection. Then I began noticing other things, subtle, quiet shifts that made my chest tighten. Her phone was always on silent. She started dressing up more, even when just stepping out for groceries. A soft perfume lingered on her scarf long after she left the room, something she hadn't worn in months. I told myself it was nothing, but self-deception is a fragile shield. One evening, I came home earlier than usual. I found her in the garden, laughing. Really laughing. Her phone was on speaker, and whoever was on the other end had said something that made her whole face light up. It stopped me in my tracks. That laughter, it used to be mine. She didn't see me, and I didn't interrupt. I backed away quietly, unsure whether I was angry, jealous, or just broken. That night, I lay awake while she pretended to sleep. My thoughts spiraled. Was she talking to someone else? Did she confide in him? Was I the one who pushed her away, or had she already found someone to fill the space I'd left with my mistakes? But the truth is, I didn't have the right to ask. I hadn't touched her with love in weeks. I hadn't seen her, not really seen her, in months. I had failed her long before she ever picked up that call. The real betrayal, I began to understand, wasn't what I feared she was doing now. It was the betrayal I committed that night when I let liquor guide my hands instead of love. Still, as I stared at the ceiling in the dark, I wondered if there was still a way back. If the person I used to be, the man she once adored, could be found beneath the guilt. Or if I had already become a stranger sleeping in her home. The night she left, she didn't slam the door. She didn't pack in anger or cry in desperation. She simply folded her clothes into a small suitcase, placed her wedding ring on the table, and walked out with the quiet dignity of someone who had waited long enough for change. I sat on the couch, watching the door close behind her, too numb to stop her, too ashamed to ask her to stay. There was no dramatic goodbye. No confrontation. Just silence. The same silence that had been living between us for weeks. But this time it was final. In the days that followed, I kept expecting a message. A call. Some sign that she might come back. That maybe, deep down, she still believed in the man I used to be. But it never came. The house echoed now, stripped of her voice, her scent, her warmth. Even the bed seemed to reject me, as if it too missed her more than it wanted me. I went through the motions, work, meals, sleep, but everything felt mechanical. Empty. I started writing letters I never sent, trying to piece together the mess I had made. Sometimes I'd reread our old messages, listen to old voicemails. Her voice once brought me peace. Now it only sharpened the ache. One evening, I found a note tucked inside the drawer of her nightstand. Her handwriting, steady and graceful, danced across the page. I waited for you to see me, to notice the distance growing between us. I waited for your apology, not with words, but with actions. I wanted to stay, Adil. But I can't be the only one holding on while you drift further away. The night you crossed that line, it wasn't about the act. It was about how lost you had become. I hope one day you find your way back to yourself. I read that note 100 times. And in the weeks that followed, I started the slow work of rebuilding. Not to win her back, though that hope still lingered, but to face the truth I had ignored for too long. I started therapy, got rid of every bottle in the house, joined a support group. Each step felt small but necessary, like climbing out of a hole I had dug myself into, inch by painful inch. Sometimes, I still walk past our favorite cafe, half expecting to see her inside, sipping chai, nose buried in a book. I never do, but I hope she's happy. I hope she found peace. They say love forgives all, but I've learned that love also walks away when it's no longer respected. And sometimes, all it takes to destroy something sacred is one night of losing yourself.